I know, right? Oh my God. Wait, you were up here?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm ridiculous. Thank you so much. That
course.
was beautiful. And you, my beloved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I don't know what's left to say, you guys. Y'all are already just, what is that thing? Like hit it out of the park. So I had a really bad joke prepared for y'all. But, but I thought I'd spare you. No, because I'm not like Terry Olson who tells the good jokes. Um, because something else came bubbling up and that I have to share with you guys. Like just the energy, can you feel it? It is definitely the resurrection, right? It is definitely preparing. That's right. Preparing for the new life. And it has been a journey. By the time I get to Holy Week, I'm like, I am ready, right? We have been on this journey of practicing this prayer practice and making room for the new life. And so what was bubbling up, I heard Margaret Mead's words, the anthropologist Margaret Mead, and she said, never underestimate the power of a small group of committed people to change the world. In fact, this is the only thing that ever has. Never underestimate the power of a small group to change the world. And that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to change the world. But here's what I know that we know is that change doesn't happen unless we're ready and willing to do the work within ourselves, right? That's the big piece. You cannot be the change in the world if you haven't done whatever it is you need to do, right? To be that soft place to land. So I'm going off script, so let me find my place on script. Because here's the thing, y'all, is I wrote 7 pages. So I had a lot to say. I have a lot to say this morning. And I had 6 pages, but then I got up and I wrote more. So bear with me. I just have so much. So as you know, during this Lenten season, we focused on the prayer life, right? We have focused on practicing what Jesus practiced. And that is, he showed us the way to God. That's what he did. He did not come to create a new religion. Everyone knows that, right? He did not come. He was not Christian. Everyone here knows that. He was not Christian. And Christ was not his last name, right? I used to think that when I was a kid. I really did. Christ is a practice. It's a consciousness of love and gratitude and forgiveness. And that's what he was constantly praying about, right? He constantly and ceaselessly was always coming back to that indwelling presence and that presence outside of him. For him, God was a personal God. It was Abba. It was a father. And we can see his life is a blueprint, right? A divine pattern that isn't just for him, but for us to step into. It's our life as well. The Christ is a consciousness that we are here to master. It's a consciousness of belonging. Everything belongs. Everything is sacred. Every single one of us, right? That's what that is. And the resurrection, the way that we practice it in unity is what Charles Fillmore says, it's the new life. And you said it so beautifully. It's the new life, making room for the new life. And we see death, and we can see death as a metaphorical death, right? Paul said it best when he says, I die daily. I die daily. It's this idea that I am dying to old ways, old beliefs, old thoughts, whatever it is that doesn't serve me, to make room for the new life, to make room for the resurrection. And so what I know and I keep leaning into is that the resurrection is not just a one-time event, right? Biblical scholars call it the Jesus event. That's what they call the resurrection, the Jesus event. But it's not a one-time event. It's a transformational journey. That's really what it is, a transformational journey into the new life. And so any time that we are in small-mindedness, we can open to the new life, right? Pettiness, greed, whatever it is, judgment, criticism, blame, whatever it is that the ego, that the mind, that the human self wants to do, we can always choose to transform into the resurrection, right, Alva? I know, I see you, I see you. It's living into the open, spacious mind. It allows for the depth of something into the greater life. So what I want to invite y'all into is choosing that resurrection. How does that feel? Choosing that resurrection. And here's the thing about it. When we choose the resurrection, what we are really doing is choosing to see the Christ in everyone and everything. Do you see how that happens? Because you've already shifted into this new view, and all of us have that Christ within us. And so say it with me. We choose to resurrect. We choose to see the Christ in everyone and everything. Everyone and everything. Isn't that beautiful? How does that feel? And know when we say we choose to see the Christ in everyone, that includes us, right? It's not just, it's also me. I see the Christ in myself. And so this morning what I want to do is share, of course we have to go to the Bible, right? Because we're talking about Jesus and the resurrection. And what I want to do is look at a piece that I've already looked at, which is the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm going to look at that again. And I want to look at it as a resurrection moment and see how he handles his friends who don't hold a high watch with him. That's what I want to look at. And how you can see him continuing to hold presence even in the midst of that. And then obviously I'm going to look a little bit at the crucifixion and a little bit of the resurrection. Why are you doing that? She's taking pictures. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm squirrel, right? Squirrel. Sorry. I apologize. Okay, so when we choose to see the resurrection not as a one-time event, but as a continuous transformational journey, we see the Christ, right? So one of the resurrection moments is the obvious one that I'm going to look at, and the other one is Garden of Gethsemane. So Garden of Gethsemane, I talked about that several weeks ago. Y'all remember when I talked about that? When we began actually our Lenten journey, I talked about Jesus, and what we said is he prayed always. It was his ceaseless practice, right? All the time. And I'm sure it's that practice to lead him into a greater and greater consciousness of knowing God's presence, right? That's what it did. So the Garden of Gethsemane, as you know, happens after the Last Supper, and it happens before the crucifixion. And so in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asks his three of his close apostles to please stay awake and please pray with him, right? What he's basically saying is, I'm having this hard time. I need you to hold a high watch, right? I need you to be with me. Now, what do the apostles do? They fall asleep, right? They fall asleep. Yeah, they're asleep at the wheel. And Jesus, as you know, he is pleading, right? If can this cup please not, may I not have to drink out of this cup? He knows what's going to happen. He knows the crucifixion is coming. He's a threat. He has been a threat to the Roman Empire, and he knows that means that he's going to be crucified. So he says, he pleads, and then he submits, right? He absolutely submits. But the part that I want to focus on is those disciples that were asleep at the wheel. And what I want to say is, do any of you have any examples of having asked anybody in your life to please hold a high watch with you? Please do something with you or for you, right? And they haven't. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, queen. Probably every single one of us can raise our hands, right? But here's the thing. They do that, and what does Jesus do? He doesn't blame them. He doesn't make them wrong. He loves them anyway, right? He doesn't say, oh my God, nobody ever does anything for me, right? He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He's not stuck blaming anybody, making anybody wrong, judging anybody, going on and carrying the story of, oh my God, nobody does anything for me. Nobody prays with me. Nobody honors my boundaries. He doesn't do that. Instead, he stays in tune to the divine presence, right? So I'm offering that because that's a resurrection moment. It's any time we want to judge, blame, make wrong, whatever it is on the human, but we choose, like, you know what, I'm going to let that go. They're doing the best they can, just like I'm doing the best they can. How about I have my mind on the highest and the best for whatever it is? That's a resurrection moment. Isn't that beautiful? Because we all have those moments in our lives, right? My parents did this or that or the other. Does anybody have examples of that? Right? I know I do. But here's the thing. They did the best they can. I know the divine is my belonging. So I loved seeing it through that lens. It is having room for the new life that flows through me. When I choose to resurrect, I see the Christ in everyone and everything, and that's the beautiful piece, right? Because you've let it go, and so then you can have that new life of God and then see the Christ. So now I want to talk about what happened on Good Friday, and this is the crucifixion. This is in John 19:28-30. He was crucified, and that is the messiness of life. That's my title, right? Messy, marvelous, miraculous life. After this, when Jesus knew that all was now finished, he said, I am thirsty. A jar full of sour wine was standing there. So they put a sponge filled of the wine on a branch and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the wine, he said, it is finished. Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. He said, I am thirsty, it is finished, and he gave up his spirit. So for me, I am thirsty is the physical body needing water, right? But I am thirsty is also the thirst for the spiritual life, right? The thirst for a deeper communion, a deeper knowing, deeper of fulfilling his fulfillment and of having the divine life living in him. And so by saying, and he gave up his spirit, he gave himself wholly to the divine. And that was on the crucifixion. And then Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene. You know that, right? That's the first one he appears to. And she stands outside the tomb and she's crying. And then someone said, woman, why are you crying? He asked her, woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for? And she thought he was a gardener. And she says, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him. And Jesus said to her, Mary. Right? Isn't that beautiful? He just said, Mary. And she turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. And I love that moment because it's not like he is, just saying, hey, look at me, look at what I've done, right? Look at what I've done, right? Giving him any kind. He continues to be that humble teacher, continues to connect with her. Mary, here I am. In that personal way, I'm still here with you and for you. And the piece that I just love the most because it is for us, Jesus said, do not hold on to me, for I have yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. I am ascending to my Father and your Father. And this is what we've said the entire Lenten season, is that what Jesus left with us is he said that I'm not the only one that can do this, right? And you can do this as well. He was not the exception. He was not an exception to worship. He was a way shower. He was an elder brother. He was a teacher. He was a blueprint, a way that we can live as well. Is that not beautiful? It's for us as well. The resurrection is for us as well. Every time that we rise to a realization of the perpetual indwelling life, then we know that is what connects us, right? It connects us to something greater and bigger. So he lived a messy, marvelous, and miraculous life, right? He lived in the mess of an oppressive Roman Empire. He lived with a heritage of Jewish peoples who had been oppressed by one empire after another. One empire after another. And as you know, the code word that he said was kingdom of heaven is within you. That was a code word. So that, because remember I'd said to y'all a couple of weeks ago, I'd read out of this book that prayer sometimes goes underground. Because it gives us hope, right? It reminds us of freedom. It reminds us that we are a committed people who can create a new life in a new world. That's big work. And we're here and we're doing it. So we also may have messy, marvelous, and miraculous lives, right? I know I do. So what does Jesus' messy, marvelous, and miraculous life mean to me this morning on Easter Sunday? As long as I can remember, I have always craved learning, knowledge, and an educated mother. I feel awful about saying that now, because what my mother gave me was even greater. She loved Jesus and introduced me to her Jesus. She told me about how he was a carpenter and born to a young woman and the importance of praying to his mother because a mother's prayers are always the strongest. She was Catholic after all. Her Jesus was always a source of comfort. Hold Jesus' hand. I heard this often, but especially when I went to her with the messiness and stresses of my life. For years, this is who Jesus was for me, a soft place, a hand to hold at 2 a.m., when anxiety would set in, when I was in the hospital, and especially during my almost 2-year convalescence. And oh yeah, how could I forget the time when I was in labor for 32 hours? Thank you, Theo. I have recognized that my practice of holding Jesus' hand has grown into something else. I want to be the comforting hand that someone else needs to hold. Jesus was living amongst the people, all the people. He had no favorites, and if he did, it was the most vulnerable, the least of these. To everyone he declared, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It was the code word necessary for living under the Romans. For Jesus, it meant that no matter what these harsh times look like, God, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, will have the last word. Amen. So what is the last word? Well, let's turn to Jesus' last words. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Words that are still relevant for today. Followed by, it is finished. But what is finished? His time on earth? Rather, his physical body on earth during this time and space continuum? I cannot believe that Jesus' time with us here on this earth is finished. Jesus led a revolution of love and hope. And it wasn't just for his time and the people with whom he lived. I cannot believe that. I refuse to believe that. Instead, his life and the revolution he led is a ceaseless invitation for those of us who believe and have faith and hope that it can be better, that we can do better. On this Easter Sunday, I see your messy, marvelous, and miraculous life. I see your resurrection and your revolution of love and hope. May we be the next evolution of love and hope. May we choose to resurrect. May we choose to see the Christ in everyone and everything. Thank you. Thank you. I am so honored to be here. I am so honored to call this my community, our community. I love you. Happy Easter.